Good afternoon, my dear students. Today we're going to have another virtual class for Math 101. So this is College Algebra, and we're going to discuss today the modules under your week 5, which is all about quadratic equations. So what is a quadratic equations? Sabi dito, we have learned how to solve linear equations in the previous lessons. In this module, we will learn how to solve equations of the form ex squared plus bx plus constant is equal to 0, or equations that we call quadratic. From the word quad, second degree equation. Last week we have discussed all about the linear equation, which is a first degree equation. So solving quadratic equation, before we solve quadratic equation, it is important that we define quadratic equation. So this is now the definition. Quadratic equation is an equation that can be written in the form ex squared plus bx plus constant is equal to 0, where your a, b, and c are real numbers, and a is not equal to 0. Take note that for an equation to be considered quadratic, the term where the value of r is squared or x squared must be present. So dapat meron po siya lagi. So this y must not be 0. Kasi nandun yung second degree equations po natin. Kasi pag wala yung second degree, what we're going to have, bx plus constant, and then we're going to have a linear equation. Kaya kailangan nandun yung x squared. This is why must not be 0. Without the squared variable, the equation is simply linear. So tulad po ng sinabi ko. Of course, the variable we are talking about is not necessarily x. Hindi lang x po, no? It is also important that the variable doesn't have an exponent greater than 2. So the degree of the equation must be 2. Kaya tinawag nilang quadratic, second degree. Baka mamaya meron kayong third degree equation, that is not a quadratic equation. Okay? So dapat the greatest exponent of their variable is in terms of x squared. No? So example quadratic equations are the following. 3x squared plus 5x minus 8 is equal to 0. 4x squared is equal to 9. 25r squared plus 49 is equal to negative 70r, m squared is equal to 6m. So we're going to look on our equation, no? Meron tayong second degree equations. Although we cannot comply with bx plus constant, at least present po ito lagi, yung ex squared. Tulad po dito, ex squared lang siya at saka constant. Wala po yung bx. Okay lang po. Because this is our ito yung importante po na dapat nating makita at present po siya dapat. Okay? So not all the times ng quadratic equations natin ay kumpleto na ganito. Okay? The most important is meron yung pinakauna. From this example, we will say that a quadratic equation doesn't have to be in the ex squared plus bx plus constant is equal to form. It is enough that we can transform in it that form 25r squared plus 49 is equal to negative 70r can be written as, so we're going to arrange this one. 25r squared plus 70r plus 49 is equal to 0, which means we arrange the equation to comply with this quadratic equation. Okay? So now that we know the definition of quadratic equation, we can discuss how to solve equations of this kind. The first method that we will discuss in solving quadratic equation is by using factoring. Okay? Ito po yung pinaka-una. Solving quadratic equations by factoring. Before we discuss this method, remember that solving an equation means we are getting the value or values of the variable or unknown. That will make the equation true. Solving a quadratic equation by factoring, as the name implies, require knowledge of factoring expressions. So we also last week we discussed about factoring, no, and special products. This is why we discussed factoring in the previous module. It's also important that we understand the zero product property. So we have your definition. Zero product property states that if AB is equal to 0, then either A is equal to 0 or B is equal to 0. This property is saying that if the product of two expressions is 0, then either one of them is equal to 0, then is the central idea in the method of factoring. And again, for this quadratic equation, since we have a second degree equation, which means there are two answers. Not just like in our linear equation, okay? Dun sa linear equations po natin, no? Okay? So, dun sa linear equations natin, we have only first degree. Kaya, yun po yung ano natin, ang sagot natin is isa lang po siya. Pero dito sa quadratic, since sa second degree, there are always two answers. Okay? So first, we're going to have the factoring. This property is saying that if the product of two expressions is 0, then either one of them is equal to 0. This is the central idea in the method of factoring. To solve a quadratic equation by factoring, we follow these steps. Step number 1, write the equation in the form ex squared plus bx plus constant is equal to 0. It is a trinomial, no? Make the value a positive so that expression is easier to factor. So dapat lahat po natin dito, lahat ay positive po siya. Step number 2, factor the non-zero side of the equation ex squared plus bx plus constant. Okay? Step number 3, equate each of the factor to 0. Okay? Equate natin, no, about the factor. This is according to the zero product property. This is why it is important that the other side of the equation is 0. Ito po siya, no? Ex squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. Para lahat po ng dalawang factors na nandito, yung dalawang solutions natin, ay ma-equate natin sa 0 using the zero product. Step number 4, solve for the unknown in the equation in step number 3. Example, solve negative 5x plus 6 equal 6 plus x squared. Let us follow the steps. Step number 1, write the equation in the ax squared plus bx plus constant is equal to 0. Make the value a positive so that the expression is easier to factor. So dito, negative 5x equal to 6 plus x squared, transpose 6 and x squared to the other side. So ito ililipat natin. Pag nag-transpose tayo, magpapalit po tayo ng sign. So we have negative x squared minus 5x minus 6 is equal to 0. Make a positive by negating all terms of the equation. So lahat po dito is negative siya. Ang gagawin po natin, we're going to negate or i-multiply natin the whole equation by negative. So pag naging negative na, this will be our equation. Lahat po naging positive. X squared plus 5x plus 6 is equal to 0. Okay? Step number 2, factor the non-zero side of the equation, x squared plus bx plus constant. So x squared plus bx plus constant is equal to 0. Factor x squared plus 5x plus 6. So ibig sabihin dito, factor the non-zero side of the equation. Ito yung zero side, ito yung non-zero side. So ito yung ipa-factor po natin. So if we're going to factor this one is a perfect trinomial. So how we're going to factor trinomial? Pag x squared yan, automatic, merong x sa bawat factor po niya. Then after that, Pag nakuha na natin yung factor ng first term, we're going to look for the factor nung last term. Yung 6, ang factor niya is look for a number that if you're going to multiply, you're going to have a product of 6. And if we're going to add these two numbers, we're going to have a sum of 5. So, yung factor ng 6 is 3 and 2. And if we're going to add 3 and 2, we have 5. So, this is now the factor of x squared plus 5x plus 6 is equal to 0. We have x plus 2 multiplied by x plus 3 is equal to 0. We learned how to do this in the previous module. Yan yung square of a perfect trinomial, no? PTS, perfect trinomial square po. So, ito po yung ginawa po natin. Step 3, equate its factors to 0. We're going to apply the zero product property. X plus 2 is equal to 0 or x plus 3 is equal to 0. Step number 4, solve for the unknown in the equation in step 3. So we have x plus 2 is equal to 0 or x plus 3 is equal to 0. So if we're going to transpose that one, ito ililipat natin, ito ililipat natin. So x will be negative 2. And also, x is equal to negative 3. Kaya sinabi ko sa inyo kanina, dahil quadratic equation po siya, then we're going to have two answers. The first answer, x is equal to negative 2. The second answer, x is equal to negative 3. Therefore, the solutions of the equation, negative 5x is equal to 6 plus x squared are negative 2 and negative 3. So next, we're going to check. We can check if our answers are correct by replacing x with either negative 2 or negative 3. Let's just try first negative 2. No? Unahin natin yung negative 2. So, substitute natin dito sa equation. Negative 5 times negative 2 is equal to 6 plus negative 2 squared. So, negative 5 times negative 2, positive 10. 6 plus 4, we have 10. 10 is equal to 10, it checks out. They have the same. How about if x is equal to negative 3? So, negative 5 multiplied by negative 3 is equal to 6 plus negative 3 squared. Negative 5, negative 3, positive 15. 6 plus 9, we have 15. So, 15 is equal to 15. And that is correct. So, therefore, x is equal to negative 2 or negative 3 is the root or the solutions of the equation negative 5x is equal to 6 plus x squared. So, that's the way how we're going to solve a quadratic equation using the factoring method. Okay? So next we have here another example. We have solved 16m squared is equal to 12m. Step 1, tatranspose natin. Ito ilalagay natin sa kabila. We have 16m squared minus 12m is equal to 0. So step number 2, we are going to factor this one. So m is common and also 16 and 12, their common factor is 4. Okay? So 4m by 4m, we have 16m squared. 4m by 3, we have 12m. So step 3, equate into 0. 4m is equal to 0. And then 4m minus 3 is equal to 0. So ito yung dalawang factor. We are going to equate into 0 using the zero product. So 4m is equal to 0. 4m minus 3 is equal to 0. Next, solve for the unknown. 4m is equal to 0. M is equal to 0 all over 4 or 0 po siya. Or 4m minus 3 is equal to 0. We're going to solve for m. M is equal to, ito ililagay natin siya doon, magiging 3 all over 4 po siya. So that is our solution. Okay? Next, we have solving a quadratic equation by completing the square. Okay? So we have now our second solution. We are already done with factoring. In this method, knowledge of the pattern for a perfect square trinomial is important. perfect square trinomial is the result of squaring a binomial. We have a plus b raised to 2, that is the same as a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. Sabi dito, to solve a quadratic equation by completing the squares, follow these steps. We demonstrate the steps by steps by solving the equation 4x squared is equal to 8x plus 5. Step number 1, write the equation in the form, okay, ex squared plus bx is equal to constant. Dati yung constant nandito, no? Pero ngayon nandito siya. This means that we separate the terms containing the variable to the constant. So lahat ng variable natin nasa left side, constant na siya sa right side. So we have 4x squared plus equal x plus 5 transpose 8x to the other side. So we have 4x squared minus 8x is equal to 5. Next, step number 2, divide all terms of the equation by the coefficient of x squared. Okay? 4x squared minus 8x is equal to 5. Divide by the term by 4. Okay? So ano yung coefficient dito? Ng x squared, we have 4. Yun po yung i-divide po natin. So, divided by 4, x squared, 8x divided by 4, we have 2, then 5 divided by 4. Okay? That is your step number 2. Step 3, make the left side of the equation a PST by adding the square of half the coefficient of x. Don't forget to add the same to the other side of the equation. This is our equation, x squared minus 2x is equal to 5 all over 4. The coefficient of x is equal to negative 2. We divide it by the 2 and then square the result. So we have negative 2 divided by 2 and then squared. The answer is 1. So ganun po yung pag-ano ng coefficient, no? Negative 2 divided by 2 and then squared po siya para makuha po natin yung pangat